July 10th, 2025, meeting of the Monmouth Planning Board. Stephen O'Donnell, the chair. Call the meeting to order. We have here tonight, full members, Dave Mills, Rick Brandt, Larry Saucier.
Ray Simon.
Ray Simon. Here we go.
That guy there.
And Bonnie's here as an alternate, but it's like we have a full coterie of the full members. And I did hear from Dave Shaw, the alternate, that he's on vacation and out of state tonight. So the first matter on the agenda, approval of the May meeting, because we didn't have any matters, so we didn't have a June meeting. So I'll entertain a motion on the May minutes.
Motion to approve May's minutes.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor of accepting those minutes? All right, 5-0. Okay. Old business, none at this time. We still have a couple matters that are sort of been carried over by agreement. One being Jellystone and the other being, remember the 135 name,
Lake Star.
Lake Star. And I'm not sure what's going on with Jellystone. Lake Star is still waiting, I think, for DEP. So, okay, so for new business, we have a subdivision amendment to the Dearborn Ridge subdivision. Todd and Lori Gifford are seeking to purchase a part of an unconstructed right-of-way at the end of Cochrane Drive. And I think we have quite a bit of information that is in the packet that our planner put together. You can see that Mary Dennison is here with Todd, so anything additional you folks want to say?
No, happy to answer any questions. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Todd and we own a very small lot on the water and a much larger lot that was part of the original Dearborn subdivision as well. And for purposes of estate planning and equity and trying to make the small lot a conforming lot, they're taking hopefully some land from the right of way that was never built and goes to nowhere. With the consent of the Dearborn Ridge Owners Association, which actually does own the whole road, was deeded the whole road right away. And another chunk from themselves from their larger piece on Cochrane Drive in order to make that lot a conforming lot, both in terms of road frontage and in terms of acreage.
And you have a survey plan that reflects the
3 copies of
changes.
fact.
Okay.
Would you like the full copies laid out for you now?
Yeah, that might be good, then
I've got the
people
smaller
can.
copies in your packet.
Yeah.
Sometimes the bigger visual
Yeah.
aid is helpful. It's a little hard to read. It is, yeah, I understand completely. So the Cochrane Drive right away, there's one we can share for this end of the table. And one we keep them at that. So the Cochrane Drive right of way, as it was originally laid out on the subdivision plan, with these dashed lines here, and then it takes a jog and it dead ends over here at land that is owned by 5 Otis Lane Irrevocable Realty Trust. All that was ever constructed for Cochrane Drive, you can see in shaded gray here. And it sort of stops here, goes onto private land. It's a gravel driveway for the Whitmores and a gravel driveway for the small lot that Todd and Lori have down here. So Dearborn Ridge said, we don't need this. We're never going to build this road to nowhere. So they're agreeing to sell to Todd and Lori this small piece. And then since Todd and Lori own, or actually Lori alone owns the big house and the big lot up here, they also will take a chunk out of that so that the ensuing lot will be a big L shape. And we'll have adequate road frontage along Cochrane Drive to meet the ordinance requirements that are in place today, as well as adequate acreage.
Has there been a septic testing done on that shows that lot is?
Well, it already has. I mean, the A-frame's been there for a long time and the existing leach field's been there for a long time.
So there is
pumped or tested lately? Have you had any malfunction with it at all?
Yes.
You have a pump?
So there is a house there already.
There is,
Okay.
there is. This is an old camp.
Yeah.
This is an old
All right.
non-conforming lot, an
Yeah.
old camp. And then the existing leach field that Todd says they're pumping every 3 years and have not had any issue.
The only issue we've had was it does, the shore comes out here and it's uphill, there's a pump. It pumps into the leach pit, we had to
Yeah.
replace the pump once.
No
Is it serviced by a well?
Okay, pardon me?
Is it serviced by a well?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, right here.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, oh, okay, sorry.
So
All right.
they're basically taking an existing camp lot, and making it a little.
So everyone read through Isabel's comments on this project? It would appear that this is pretty straightforward and not really controversial.
So aside from that house up on the big section and that, there are no residences down here.
There is, the Whitmores have a camp
Oh,
on their
up here,
property.
yeah.
But we also submitted along with part of our package a memorandum where all of the affected owners have
Yeah,
signed and
absolutely.
said they consent. So we just wanted to save you the time and that's of a public hearing, if we could.
So I think rather than having, in this case, because of the nature of this kind of amendment, just a piece coming out of that right away and everyone agreeing. I don't know that we need to go through every one of the subdivision criteria if the members feel we could vote on those as a whole.
I
That,
think so.
so I would
I would make a
entertain.
motion that we can do that. You just vote on.
Second.
So in terms of the conclusions of law, do we all agree that the requisite standards that we're required to consider are met? All in favor? 5-0. So then we would have, I think, a motion. I think there was a recommended motion.
Yeah, make a motion to move to find that the application on record an amendment of Midbourne Ridge subdivision is complete and for sub review.
All in favor of that motion?
Need a second?
I need a second.
Second.
Second by Rick. All in favor? Okay,
And on the following page.
yeah. And someone want to make that motion that's on page?
I make a motion to move the approval application of Todd Griffith and amended of the Dead Bourne Ridge subdivision to just approximately 0.11 acres of unbuilt road right away from Dead Bourne Ridge Road owner association. Revise the lot lines of 100 and 101 Cochran Drive for the findings and fact conditions of approved date July 10th, 2025.
Or second?
Second.
Right.
We would go,
Yes, I know. I am just thinking that, we have those standard conditions. I think we just need to refer to those, maybe numbered, add a number 5, or you.
So
Or
I,
you think they're all incorporated in what you,
yeah, what I did was, given that there's no construction here, I took the relevant standard conditions of recording the findings of
Yeah.
practical conditions, recording an amended plan, and then our typical, this approval is limited to the plans in the application. And all deeds or leases conveying interest need to contain that no lot shall be further divided without the written approval of the plan.
okay,
Because
I
it's
think we're
subdivision.
covered that.
Yeah.
Okay. Then all in favor of that motion made by Larry to approve with the condition? 5-0. Very good. So we just need to sign a couple of the plans.
So the recorded copies, I think they're registered for first to color versions to the black and white.
Yeah.
So these are the two color versions and the signature blocks are right here for the planning board.
Sign both.
Yes, I did.
These. In front of it.
I started doing this. You used to have to sign the Mylar.
Yeah, you have to have a special pen.
It's the special pen and
Yeah.
scraping across the thing.
Yeah.
So much easier now.
Or you don't use a special pen and you get it back and it's all smudged.
Exactly, exactly.
You know what happened here?
But I did learn the hard way that the registry does not like their paper plans to be folded. They get very grumpy.
Mhm.
Fold only.
Does she sign?
She didn't.
No, Bonnie,
No.
no. I mean, it was-
Keep one signed copy and I record the other. Yes.
Yeah, I think that's the way that, yeah. Yeah. You're rolling, you're rolling.
He doesn't want to get screamed at.
Yeah, no. All right. That was easy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Never as easy as you think it's gonna be, but
Well, I have to say, your town planner is really good at keeping people organized.
yeah, that's why we have her.
Thanks so much.
Okay.
Nice evening.
Okay. And the next matter we have is, it's an initial application and completeness review, potential full review of shoreline zoning application. Don and Scott Flag to rebuild within the same footprint the structure at 12 Bailey Lane, damaged by more than 50% market value by fire. And so you are the Mr. and Mrs. Flag. So tell us a little bit about your property.
Just as a procedural point, one of the owners, Scott Flag, is on Zoom.
Oh, okay.
Waiting to be admitted, so if we could.
Is he there?
He's not in the room.
Says he is, so we'll proceed and.
Well, no, we'll try to get him. We're in no hurry. We don't have a,
Does he have the right link? It should be on the agenda.
Yes,
Okay.
I sent him the right link, so hopefully. We don't want to hold up things.
that's okay. We don't have any other, application that we're considering tonight, so.
A lot of pressure to text quickly.
Yes. Take your time. Take your time.
Okay, I see what's going on here.
He's there now?
He's not there right yet.
Somebody get on, but yesterday somebody Skyped it.
Yeah.
The selectmen had a pretty good show last night.
Oh, really? We had a porn show. During the selectmen's meeting.
Really?
Oh, yeah, somebody had Skyped it.
Maybe more to you.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody hacked into it?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
Really?
I'm
I
saying.
don't hear that. Because I don't hear them. I used to get regular reports.
Yeah, tell your brother you missed something.
Yeah, he missed
You'll
the
have to
best,
watch the tape.
the best meeting.
Oh, my.
Yeah, the fire department was giving us a report and all of a sudden you hear this noise and it got Skyped.
Okay, so that's why they changed the Zoom link. Okay.
Yeah, that's why.
Oh, is that what happened? Is that why we're not getting any?
Yeah, yep.
If you just want to put them on your phone speaker, that's fine.
He just gave a thumbs up, so I think. Okay.
Okay.
I think he's. Yeah. He's trying to connect.
We'll divert to that alternative.
Yeah, that's a
Because
Yeah.
good option if this doesn't come right through. If you don't mind admitting him when you see him.
you go ahead and get started, and then if he doesn't get on, I'll just dial him in. If you're ready. Yeah.
Perfect.
Right there.
He's in, yeah.
He's in.
If he wants to speak, he'll just have to unmute,
Unmute.
but otherwise, I think we're good.
All right.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for your patience. It's good to have, he's in Florida, so I very much wanted to pay attention to what's going on, so. My name is Jim Cassida. I'm an environmental consultant. I do this for a living. However, in this particular case, I also have a close personal tie to this property. Don Flagg, one of the owners, is my wife. I have a history with this property as well. So Don and Scott are the legal owners of the property. And Don and Scott's dad has a lifetime tenancy. He couldn't be with us tonight, but Anyway, so the property at 12 Bailey Lane, has been owned in the Flag Bailey family since 1941. Don and Scott's grandfather built the original camp in the Robinson Pine Colony, and that was this camp. It was the first, my understanding anyway, this was the first camp on the west shore of Cottonwagon, way back in the day. So, obviously, there's a lot of family history and a lot of memories there with this camp. So, the fire that happened on Easter Sunday, is a very unfortunate situation. The fire was started, according to the fire department's report, at the CMP distribution line. There were very high winds that day, as you may recall. It started a ground fire, and the fire quickly spread to our shed, which was fully stocked with 3 quarts of nice dry seasonal firewood. Went up like a torch, and then proceeded to go from there into the camp, and was almost to a neighbor's camp when the fire department arrived on the scene. So they focused on getting the fire out at the neighbor's camp to prevent that structure, and then while they waited for equipment, and by the time the equipment got there, our camp was involved. But they acted quickly. I can't praise the fire department and everybody that responded enough. How they saved that structure, I don't know. Because given the amount of damage to part of it, and material in the part that wasn't burned that was melted, it was pretty hot in there. So nonetheless, we've got a camp there that has sustained a fair amount of damage. We're working with Josh Rennie to come up with a plan to repair the camp. I think it's clear to us that at least some of it has to come down to the ground and be rebuilt from the ground up. But the major part of the structure, living room area, with the cathedral ceiling, it's all beams and stuff, we're gonna try to save. Fire got under the camp, so there's a fair amount of damage to the floor joists under the whole camp. So the tricky part is gonna be figuring out how to save the walls and the roof structure in that cathedral area while fixing the floor at the same time. So
And there are 2 fireplaces?
there are 2 stone fireplaces, one on the bedroom side and one on the living room side, both of which are in perfect order. We really want to save those fireplaces. They were built by Don's grandfather, Don
Do
Scott.
they go down into this dirt cellar, the base of them, or?
No, they sit on grade. I
Yeah.
assume they're a little bit subgrade, but I've never dug around there.
Yeah.
No, after the camp was built, Don's grandfather got under there by hand and dug out a little hand dug cellar area where the hot water heater and stuff is. So cellar is a very loose term, but it's an area where you can almost stand.
Crawl space.
Yeah, space. Yeah, you can stoop over, and it's useful for storage. Although in retrospect, we stored a lot of lumber materials under there, which in retrospect, given the fact that it just fuels the fire, not sure that was a great idea, but nonetheless, no, they sit on grade.
So the plan is just to rebuild within the existing footprint? No expansion
No
or,
expansion. It's a seasonal cottage, 2x4 construction, open stud bays, no insulation, very basic cabin. And that's the way the family wants to leave it. So we want to repair it in the same footprint, similar type of materials, 2x4 open stud bays, pine floors, and try to get it back to as close to its original condition.
so what you have is a grandfathered structure. And it was built before the state adopted shoreland zoning. So what the planning board is tasked with is when we have a situation like yours, we have to determine that when you rebuild, that the setback is met to the fullest practical extent. And, looking at all the different factors. So you have a septic.
There's an existing septic system there that is functioning and in good order.
Where is it in relation to the building?
It's, if you're looking at the camp from the lake, the septic tank is located off the east corner. And the leach field kind of goes at a 45-degree angle toward the lake. So if we move the camp back, we would be moving it back further away from the septic tank and leach field.
And what do you have behind the camp now?
There's three loop driveways that come in, so right directly behind the camp is a driveway, and I use that term somewhat loosely because they're not really improved surfaces, they're vegetated and pined off areas that we just drive on. So a bit of an area that you could swing in and park your car right behind the building now, so. And then right directly behind that, there's a cluster of 7 trees, some of them are pretty good sized pine trees. So if we moved it back, that cluster of trees would have to come down as well.
So you won't have, so to do this rebuild, will you have to remove any tree?
There are 2 trees right on the southwest corner that are very close to the camp. And we talked about it with Josh, and that the trees themselves are not necessarily a problem, but the roots go right under camp.
Yeah.
So to try to redo the supports for the part of the camp that needs to be rebuilt, we're thinking that we should take down those 2 trees just so that we're not building on top of with the roots in the way. We would replant those trees if they came down.
And there's a sort of a requirement within shoreland zoning that if trees are removed, there's a replanting. Henry,
In the photo log, there's a tree with a tape around it, and I guess I'm questioning the existence of that tree relative to that tape.
You're talking about photo number 2?
I can't tell. How about photo number 11?
11. Yeah, 11, the 2 trees that are shown in photo number 11 are the 2 that we think will need to come down in order to do the camp. So the one that's closest to the camp, the roots go right under the camp. The other one that's a little bit further up on the hill, in order to fix the drainage around the camp, we need to pull that bank back just a little bit to fix the stormwater. And so I think we're gonna get into the roots of that second tree as well, the one that's closer in the photograph that you referenced.
Is that part of the retaining wall?
That retaining structure that we would build on the west side of camp, those roots would inhibit the ability to do that correctly, we believe, so.
On the retaining wall. All water coming down, it's gonna stay behind and be infiltrated. Not gonna do an end run around the wall.
The natural drainage will still probably go down the hill. What we're trying to address is that, I'm trying to see if there's a photo that really shows it well. 18 does a little bit, but the camp is, that part of the camp that's gonna come down is actually sitting in a hole. So the floor is actually below grade, so that, and that's because over the years, the runoff has been moving material under the camp and kind of filled in under it. So the retaining wall is the idea behind the retaining wall is to try to prevent water from just washing under the camp and divert it around the camp. So it would still be going down the hill toward the lake, but it wouldn't be going in a direct path right under the camp, bringing sediment and stuff filling in under the camp. That's the idea behind it.
You're gonna have to put some type of riprap or something around there to slow the flow of the water coming down the hill.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
Josh, get it.
Put a fence up down by the lake to prevent anything from getting down there, erosion control, stuff like that.
There's a common problem that we see all the time around the lakes.
Is this building on post currently?
It is currently on posts and rocks and
Yeah,
it's very, I mean, it was very rustically built, so it's.
What's the plan moving forward for you?
We put the posts on.
Yep.
Yeah, if we need to go with the big ones, the
Yep.
P3s, we can, but if the P2s are fine, we'll use those.
Okay.
But we probably do 3 rows.
Mhm.
So you have 1 to support the center and then 2 rows on the outside.
Yep.
How do you put those underneath the building?
Well, if the building's gonna be, that part of the building's gonna be gone, so we'll have the machine drill the poles. And you set your carry beams on them and then you build your floor and walls and keep going.
So the floor is gonna be out of the way.
They'll have to, that corner, that's by the septic tank is you can fall right through the floor. That's how burned up it is.
Okay. Techno posts aren't gonna go over total footage of the structure. You're gonna do techno posts just on the damaged part of the structure?
Yeah, because the other posts underneath there are, they look fine. They don't look like they have any
Okay.
damage. The ones that are underneath that structure they are damaged.
That's what I'm getting at.
Yep.
You're not gonna do the whole bottom underneath there, technically.
I think some of it depends on, because right now it's a little bit of an unknown of how much the floor structure under the part of camp that we're trying to save, we can save. So it could be worst case that the whole floor system has to come out and all save the walls. In which case, I don't know, maybe there's access to get in there.
We could do it at that point where we just have to take one of the window frames out and they can extend their boom in and shoot them in that way. They do have a small enough machine that we can dig it down low enough, they might be able to get it.
I'm looking at photos 7 and 11. So it looks like the grade changes on the camp. It looks like it goes up, I don't know, a couple feet or more. See it more on number 7, so you'd be getting into moving it back, you'd kind of be getting closer into that hill.
Yeah, on the west side of the camp, that's where the driveway goes up the hill, where those 2 trees that have to come down are. It's a pretty good grade going up that hill, so if you were to pull the camp back, you would have to dig into that slope. Or elevate the camp even higher, and of course, moving it back requires the stone chimneys to.
Yeah.
It'd be almost impossible to track the chimneys up here.
And the chimneys have a lot of sentimental attachment for the family because John's grandfather used to travel a lot and all of the rocks and minerals that he collected on his trips.
He incorporated them.
He made them, they're in the fireplace, so to take that down, they would lose a lot.
You don't move too well. I don't know, you staying within the footprint, you're not elevating, changing the elevation on it.
No, as a matter of fact, because of the existing part of the structure that we're trying to save is so integrated into that stone chimney, that elevation, everything's staying exactly the same.
You know, roof might be a little higher in that area that's damaged.
Be the same as it is. We may scrape a little bit under the camp just to get a little bit of better airflow under that existing part of the camp. You can't even crawl to the northeast corner, right now, so.
So more often than not, when we're looking at a rebuild or an expansion, the board does a site visit, but not. Or we need one here. I don't know what people think. Either want to see the site or whether there's enough information here with the photographs and so forth.
I would say that we should have the site visit.
You want to see the site?
I want a better handle on that retaining wall, because it's, you know, it's got a considerable slope. That's the concern. You know, if it was more level, it would not be a big issue. The slope that's there.
Probably Bill Monagle hasn't seen this, right? This wasn't.
Bill hasn't reviewed this. I included his standard conditions around.
Yeah.
Strip edge.
What do other people think? They want to do a site visit or what's the pleasure of the board?
Can I ask a question?
Oh, sure.
Okay, so I did see that it's non-conforming in that it's closer to the lake than.
100 feet.
Yeah, and so how much effect, because it is non-conforming, so if you approve it, well, again, it's gotta be grandfathered in, you can't, because it's not what it's supposed to be. But what happens with the drainage and all of that, because it isn't as far off as it's supposed to be? How can you mitigate, because it's closer to the lake than if you were gonna build something new, so that you could protect the lake?
Retaining.
The retaining wall, and how does that work with cabin? I'm not a construction person, so I'm hearing this. Okay, so it's closer than it's supposed to be to protect the lake. And so how will the retaining wall, looking at the pictures, it looks like there's quite a slope. How will the retaining wall protect the lake from runoff? That's my question.
If I could add, the retaining, there's really no erosion problems there currently in the current condition. It's a very mature, vegetated, natural forest area. So while there's some slope from across the property down to the lake, all of the runoff going down there doesn't pick up any sediment because it's just going through natural forest condition. The intent of the retaining wall is not necessarily to protect lake water quality, but it's to try to protect the underside of the cottage. Because it's sitting in that low spot, the runoff going under the camp is just, detrimental to the
Health of it.
support system and the health of the camp. So the retaining wall is intended to help address that issue, not necessarily to address runoff going toward the lake. The runoff going toward the lake is going to continue to follow, generally speaking, the same path that it does now across the same vegetated surface to the lake that it does now.
I guess that's my concern. That's why I want to take a look at it.
And the retaining wall is something that we could reconsider too. I mean, we could try to rebuild the camp and just continue to let the runoff go under the camp. The same way that it has now, if the retaining wall is for whatever reason determined to be, not a good idea from your perspective, but, so we have some flexibility.
Yeah, no, I think what she's getting at is like a concern I got. We do want to add to the problem. I mean, you correct this problem, but you create another problem type thing.
Understood.
Yeah, sometimes it's a matter of creating something additional to direct, say, the general flow into more wooded areas or, around the camp. And I don't know what the site. It does look, as you say, it's a mature site. There are quite a bit of trees and vegetation.
That's what I was asking about with riprap or something, because then it slows it things down. You substantially reduce the volume and or the ferocity of it. That's dissipated even quicker than what it does now with the mature vegetation.
Right. And I think you'll see if you do a site visit that the association has done a lot of work over the years with the Cobussy Watershed District. And this past summer, within the last month, they've added some gravel to Bailey Lane and they've done some ditch work up further above the camp that is intercepting the water that used to come down Bailey Lane and in some cases right down our driveway by the camp. Now it's being redirected into the woods and into drainage systems. So that in and of itself is helping to some degree with the amount of runoff that's coming across the lawn.
What does Bailey Lane connect to?
Robinson Pine Colony,
And then beyond, so it's on the what?
Packard Road,
Packard Road.
to Robinson Pine.
Packard Road,
Yeah.
you're down there, it's down also
Okay.
with Hemlock and all the others are down.
All right. So we have the application. We have a motion that the application is complete.
I move to accept the application. Yeah, I so moved.
And that it's complete. All in favor? Today's what? Today's the 10th. If we did a site visit, do you want to do it on July 24? Weeks from tonight. Does that work for folks? 5:30? That give everybody time to get home, do what they need to do.
Would you like to have us present when you do that? site
Well, it'd be
visit?
good to have somebody there who can sort of show us, and
What your plans and all.
see, we invite Bill Monagle from Cobussy Watershed, and a lot of times, he makes good recommendations in terms of what is done to, enhance or prevent any further, say, flow into the lake. So we usually like to have his input on these projects too, so. I mean, I don't know that, I think there are ways that you can go ahead and do this, but it's probably good for, get him involved. And as I say, Ray seems to want to see what lay of the land is, so. But are we in agreement to do that then on 2 weeks from tonight?
5:30, you said?
Yeah. I mean, I can do earlier if people want to do earlier, but what's the pleasure? 5:30, good for you, Ray, or would you want to do it any earlier than that?
Thursday.
Thursday.
Yeah, 2 weeks.
Tomorrow.
I noticed to abutters and all of that.
It's a notice.
That's my next question as well. Are you gonna be holding a public hearing where you want us to send notice?
I don't think that there's a need for a public hearing.
The abutters are all.
The abutters should be notified, though.
All of the abutters know, we had an association meeting last weekend and all of the abutters are aware of what's going on. So while they haven't been formally noticed, they are aware of what's going on.
Some of them up here for the summer, or are they off?
They're all, well, the Simontons to the south are here all summer. All of the other abutters come and go. So they were here last week. I can't tell you if they're here right now.
I think if the abutters are notified, that's adequate. A written invitation.
All right. So we'll take a visit on the 24th. We'll send information to Bill.
Plan to be there.
Great.
Sure you're around.
Yeah,
Josh, if
great.
he's available maybe too, but,
Yeah, and then we meet again the second Thursday of August, which we should be able to complete the review at that point.
we were expecting eventually for this to be a two meeting process, so that's.
Yeah, typically, I mean,
Yeah, it'd be-
some we are able to do with,
It'll be August 14th,
August 14th is the,
next meeting.
yeah.
What's the reason for the late start date on it?
Late start date of construction. Just schedule, trying to get through the permitting process and then scheduling,
Okay.
When are you hoping to start?
Any question for Joe?
I mean, we can start it once you guys approve it.
Yeah, okay. Try to.
We're still working through the estimate and the insurance process, so.
Yeah.
But those, we were held up for the insurance company was trying to subrogate with CMP because they want to recover because they feel the fire was CMP's problem.
Yeah.
And it was just last week when we got permission to go into the camp and start salvaging any materials, so it's taking longer than normal, so.
And we would like to do some of our own reclaiming of,
Yeah.
the more.
Are you using a public adjuster to help you with the insurance company or?
We're using the insurance adjuster.
Just-
Insurance companies.
You're just doing their guy. Sometimes people hire their own adjuster. I mean, it ends up costing you money because you gotta pay them. But,
In this particular case, I think we're gonna get the maximum amount of insurance that we have, just because I think we were maybe a touch underinsured,
yeah,
but, we're gonna get the most that we can get out of the policy as it is, so we didn't see a need to try to micromanage it to that degree, so.
all right.
Yes, yeah. And just FYI, there's plenty of parking down there, so multiple vehicles, there's plenty of place for people to pull off. Right into one of the driveways at Bailey, so.
All right. All right. Sounds good.
We accept the application or you don't yet?
Oh, I don't know if we voted. Vote to accept and find it complete. Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your time and
Look
consideration.
forward to seeing you on the 24th and next.
Okay. So I think the minutes didn't say at the outset of the meeting that the members whose terms expired at the end of June have been sworn in, which is Ray, Larry, and Rick, so I want the record to reflect that. Okay. So, before we get into the other business, Isabel and I did have some communications with town manager this week to make sure we get Isabel contract renewed. We discussed a little bit, maybe some ordinance work. Sort of maybe take that up as we can, but there's a few things we've been tracking, I think, in the comprehensive ordinance, and, you know, maybe with the comp plan too, there'll be some issues that we kind of need to look at, but I'll turn it over to Isabel for the other business item.
In terms of my planner's report, I do just want to flag, since we had a conversation at the outset, actually two things. I'll answer your question too. So there was a solar project the board approved. This was actually before my time, that's now under construction. And we were talking at the outset of the meeting about the entrance to the property appears to be different than what the board approved. I just want to note that, as you're probably aware, the code enforcement officer is able to approve the ordinance calls it minor amendments to projects that don't impact approval standards if field conditions necessitate something. What occurred was, as I understand it, CMP wasn't able to approve the location of some portion of infrastructure that was needed for this project in the location needed near the entrance. So they put in a temporary entrance with poles on that side. And that was approved by myself and the code enforcement officer. So if you're driving by, just be aware that that's what's going on.
And that's on the South Monmouth Road?
Yeah, the South Monmouth Road project. And I believe the temporary entrance is.
That's a fish hatchery.
Yes, yeah.
Oh, the temporary, but I thought there was a cut on South Monmouth, which was for some part of the CMP connection.
Yes, that's the conversation. Yeah. Yep.
But that's not gonna be the roadway into it. It's
No,
just for that.
it sort of dead ends quite quickly, but it's just for that infrastructure issue. Yep. So that's one thing. The other thing I just want to make you aware of, I have been having meetings with Lakestar applicant and her team. She is planning to come back. They're hoping for the August meeting, although I haven't yet seen an application. So in our next few meetings, I guess, to do a sort of to hope to get the initial 4 lots of the subdivision approved. They are drastically scaling back the application, so it will be a new application for, I believe she said 3 or 4 initial lots. They have that farmhouse. They're constructing on what was previously known as Lot 4 of the subdivision plan that you all saw. The plan has also been reworked, and so at some point in the future, could be months, could be years, are coming back with like the full subdivision, but that will need to be reworked. So she wants to get started with 3 to 4 lots initially. So basically 2 more than what she has already started right now, the farmhouse and the Lot 4 building that's under construction. Just so you know, to expect that maybe August, September.
Has the farmhouse been sold?
I believe, I'm not sure. For the purposes of subdivision definition, it is still considered part of this overall lot. So I don't believe so, but I'm not sure.
I thought it was at one point, but then I saw the sign go back.
Right. Yeah, I was just by it like this morning.
Dave would know.
Huh?
Dave Shaw would know.
Okay, that being said, what I want to talk about this evening is just to give you an update on some recent state law changes. this is in context of LD 2003, which was a law that was adopted by the legislature back in 2022, which was actually called an act to implement the recommendations of the commission to increase housing opportunities in Maine by studying land use and zoning restrictions. The law was designed to remove unnecessary, per the report of the commission, regulatory barriers to housing in Maine. So just so you're aware, this was a lot of conversation about 2 years ago. The town of Monmouth has not actually yet adopted standards to match with this state law, which preempts local home rule authority and requires towns to, among other things, allow additional density for defined affordable housing developments that it sets income limitations on. Eliminates single-family only zoning. So essentially, anywhere in the community, you can build a duplex. In designated growth areas with water and sewer, you can build up to 4 units. Notwithstanding other dimensional standards. So I should note that you have to still meet density requirements and minimum lot area requirements and frontage requirements. But if you have a pretty big lot, that means that in our growth area, you can build up to 4 units sort of by right. Accessory dwelling units must be allowed, and local ordinances and regulations need to be designed to affirmatively further the purposes of the Federal Fair Housing Act. So.
Okay.
I am giving you that context because first off, we need to adopt those ordinance changes. That has been into effect. Technically, towns were supposed to comply back in 2024. So just putting that on your radar that that's something I'm working on. The legislature just in June adopted another law, which is LD 1829. How I would describe this is essentially the next building block of LD 2003 in the eyes of those in the legislature. This law clarifies and adds on to LD 2003. It again is all around increasing housing production by removing barriers. So in this law, they require additional height allowances for affordable housing developments. You have to allow, basically, if your ordinance's height limit is currently 30 feet, you need to allow 44 feet. If your ordinance's height limit is currently 25 feet, you need to allow 39 feet. 1 story above what you currently allow for those defined affordable housing projects with income restrictions.
Does that mean that a structure can have more than 1 habitable unit? Does that mean it's like a two-family house, quote unquote? Is that where that definition is headed?
Well, yes. So affordable housing developments are typically multiple units.
Yes.
And they're income restricted to those making usually less than 80% of the area median income.
The point you're making, a duplex. So
Yes.
you buy half a house with a common wall.
Right.
So what this is saying is if you had the lot, you could have 2 habitable units, but there's one on top of you.
Yes. Yep. Could do that. Yep. It also clarifies that you need to allow up to 3 dwelling units. They can either be attached dwelling units or detached dwelling units. So you could have like a duplex and 1 unit all on the same lot.
Did they specify a lot size?
Well, I'll get to that in just a moment.
Jumping again, I'm gonna say, I don't know.
Yes, so, and I'm sort of presenting this conversationally, but there's a whole memo in your packet that
Yeah.
goes into this in much more
Yeah.
detail. So I think sometimes I explain things a little bit conversationally, but that's a little bit more information. So then it clarifies that you need to allow up to 4 dwelling units, and it can be a combination of a dwelling unit and an accessory dwelling unit. Accessory dwelling units under LD 2003 do not have to meet parking requirements, and do not have to meet like dimensional standards. So they are treated differently than a typical primary dwelling unit. Have to allow 4 total units, and they can be either primary dwelling units or accessory dwelling units. The thing and either attached or detached. If this sounds confusing, it is also confusing to practitioners. And I am anticipating, there's some legal challenges that I'll also talk about in a second. I am anticipating that there will be rulemaking to clarify a lot of this at some point as well. So it is confusing to me as well. And I have been involved in this from when the bill was first introduced. Yeah. Okay, the big kahuna here is that it also caps minimum lot size requirements at 5,000 square feet, which is a very small lot. So if you are on water and sewer and within the designated growth area as designated in the comprehensive plan, the largest minimum lot size requirement that you can have as a municipality is 5,000 square feet. Now, just to give you an idea of what that is, our current minimum lot area requirements on public sewer is 15,000 square feet.
Yeah.
So essentially triples our density requirements for those areas within the growth area.
Little.
Little, I mean, I came from working in larger cities. That was not a minimum lot size that we even went down to. And so that's pretty impactful for Monmouth.
Want to make every place look like Lewiston.
Right, I mean, that's a great example. There are some neighborhoods in Lewiston that have 5,000 square foot lots. But actually that's their smallest minimum lot size as well. Most of their lots are more like in the realm of 7,500, 10,000 square feet, you know, when you get out a little bit further. So
But the 5,000 is going to be the maximum.
the maximum, yeah,
So that's kind of backwards.
Yes, it is.
yeah.
Yeah.
Also within those growth areas, the minimum lot area per family, so the density requirement cannot exceed 1,250 square feet for the first 4 dwelling units. So essentially, every lot with 5,000 square feet will be able to have 4 units, notwithstanding setback
Whoa.
provisions. Yeah.
4?
Mhm.
Of course, they can go up.
Yeah.
That's right.
How high? Now, that's a question I got. You got fire protection that's involved with height.
Yeah, so that is, I'll talk about the legal challenges in a second, and that's one of the concerns. Outside of growth areas, so in our established rural areas, just so you know, it also cuts our current requirement in half as well. So it goes down to 20,000 square feet in rural areas, which our current requirement is 40,000 square feet. That in those areas, you only need to allow up to 2 units though, but you have to allow up to 2. The law also clarifies that any dimensional standards, so frontage, building height, setbacks, can't be more restrictive for multifamily dwelling units than those that exist for single-family homes. Some communities were getting around the initial LD 2003 law by requiring that if you're doing a multifamily building, actually, I think Monmouth also currently requires this. If you have a multifamily building, you have to have higher setbacks than what you would typically require for a single-family home. That's in our current ordinance. That's no longer allowed. Also, it changed the requirements for subdivision. So currently, if you have a 3-unit building, that triggers subdivision review. At this point, they changed the requirements for units on subdivisions up to 5 units to allow 4-unit buildings to be reviewed administratively. Actually, it says they cannot be reviewed by the planning board. Removes any owner occupancy requirements for accessory dwelling units. So some of the towns I work in sort of take the traditional view of accessory dwelling units, which is that it was like a mother-in-law apartment and it had to be, you know, the main house or one of the units had to be owner occupied. You can't have that as a requirement anymore. Also removes the requirements for accessory dwelling units to be sprinklered, which is what the fire and life safety community are mostly worried about, unless the accessory dwelling unit is attached to a larger like 2 or 3 unit structure, 2, 3 or more unit structure.
Why would they do that?
Um,
That just doesn't seem safe.
Yeah, and then the height requirements, to answer your question, the fire and life safety community is also concerned about that one as well, because it's currently unclear if that's going to require municipalities to purchase, for example, taller ladder trucks, to be able to fight fires in those buildings. So some communities don't have ladder trucks at all, or that tall of ladder trucks to be able to fight fires that way. So that's a conversation that's going on. What I found out from Justin, who is on Maine Municipal Association's Legislative Policy Committee, MMA has hired an attorney to provide legal opinion about this law, 1829, because the legislature, as I understand it, adopted the bill without any fiscal note. When LD 2003 was adopted, they actually provided grants of up to $10,000 to towns to change their ordinances to comply with LD 2003. That was not provided in this most recent round of changes, which I would argue, and most planners are arguing, are much more significant than the changes that came about as a result of LD 2003 2 or 3 years ago. So MMA has put in has asked for a legal opinion. Justin has advised that the town doesn't address these until we hear back on that legal opinion and until the state goes through rulemaking on this to clarify some of the questions that I and many other planners across the state have about this change. But that being said, currently the law says that if adopted, municipalities with a town meeting form of government need to comply by July 1, 2027 with LD 1829. So
I wonder if they're using this accessory thing for these people that want tiny houses.
yeah, so there was some changes around tiny homes recently as well. Not nearly as impactful as this, but that's sort of the idea. Accessory dwelling units are meant to be smaller units. They can be attached or detached. So theoretically, you know, in a separate structure, and don't have to meet parking requirements and certain other dimensional standards. So that could very well be. Yeah, it's a little bit up in the air. I'm putting it on your radar at this point, just because depending on how any legal challenges that might be coming out of any affected entity goes, this might be pushed off. But currently we would probably want to start working on this, you know, about 6 months from now, if we're gonna make some changes. But we'll see, we'll wait and see how things shake out. LD 2003, the first half of this memo does need to be implemented. We're actually about a year late on, a year and a half late on that, so.
And I had told Justin that I didn't think we could deal with this until we got the comp plan out of the way.
Yeah. And the recommendations of the comp plan, in some cases, tend to sort of comply with LD 2003 anyway. That's the much more scaled back version of this legislation. You know, we were looking at it potentially increasing density in our growth areas. Not to this extent, I don't think, but you know, potentially increasing density, making it harder to build in rural areas to some level, all of that. So there are changes that need to come out of the comprehensive plan process, separate from this, that I'll also be working on over the next few months, but that's the state of things right now. Any questions at this point?
No one would accuse the legislatures of really doing a good job.
Have you ran into any other towns that had the accessory dwellings already happening and in place?
Yep, so most of the towns I work in have accessory dwelling units in place. Usually it's, you know, you can have one on your property. They don't have to meet setback, parking requirements, density requirements. They do have to still meet setback requirements. Some of the other towns I work in had those owner occupancy requirements. You know, because that's our traditional thought of what an accessory dwelling unit is.
Yeah.
the thing about ADUs from a housing perspective is they are smaller units, and so they tend to be really great, like, so I'm young, or younger, and I have a lot of friends who built ADUs on their parents' property to live in until they had kids, and then they sort of flip-flopped, and their parents moved into the ADU, and they live in the big house now with their kids. And it's not just one, I have a handful of friends that did that route, because that's sort of a nice way to be able to break into the housing market without having to buy in our tough market. So it's sort of affordable housing for young folks just starting out, or for folks that need to downsize or might need, care on the property. Thus the owner occupancy requirements. The legislature has sort of said that that's no longer applicable, so I'm not
So,
sure how to deal with that.
accessory dwelling unit, does that have to, like, so you would have to put in a new septic system or add on to the existing?
Make sure that the septic system can handle that amount of flow at least, yeah. So always dependent on bedrooms, yeah.
Right, yep,
Of course, a lot of it's on sewer anyway.
right.
Yes,
The growth areas.
yeah.
Well. There certainly is a housing crisis, but
There's definitely a need for it.
there's a need for housing, but I don't know. It isn't one size fits all. That's the problem, really.
Mhm.
That's,
Yeah,
and it's a burden. I mean, the smaller towns who are gonna have to say upgrade fire, I mean, what are the insurance companies' reactions gonna be in terms of insurability if a community doesn't have a truck that can?
Your ISO basically is they evaluate the fire department and how they're able to put fires out, water, trucks and different things. So when the ISO does their ratings, well, for the town, that's what sets your insurance for your housing. So if three, if we get 3 stories, 4 stories, they can't get that, it affects your ISO rate.
And
To
it
bring
also means
marshmallows.
the insurance is more.
No flow of water, I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff that they go through.
I mean, it sounds like a lot of this stuff really applies to the cities, but it doesn't really apply to small towns at all.
yeah.
I mean, it just doesn't seem to fit.
You don't think we should have 4 and 5-story buildings?
It just doesn't make sense.
I think I
As
don't,
long as they're right next to the town hall.
What's our ordinance?
I think it's 35 feet.
For anything over a single family or 2 family, it's 35 feet. So
Right now.
about 50 feet.
So it's about.
There's nothing in statute that requires a municipality buy fire equipment to meet.
So as we're going, if we end up having to make these ordinance changes, which I'm just gonna be open, I am planning to make those changes at some point until I hear differently. But if we were to make those changes, that's one of the things I'd have to talk with the fire department about. What is your current capacity? Because should we be lowering the height limit for all of our other buildings so that we can ensure that you have the capacity to fight fires in the affordable housing developments that have the height bonus?
I think that's why it's at 35 feet,
Right,
because that's pretty much where they go. At 35 feet, we can fight that.
right.
Yeah.
Anything above that, it becomes a problem.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just doesn't, I'm sorry, that kind of requirement, which is so important. And they didn't consider it?
I think
What requirement?
For fire protection. I mean, that one, either, you have to do something to help towns. I mean, most small towns have volunteer fire departments.
I don't think the legislature has changed since you were there.
Oh, yes, it has.
Yeah.
Yes, it has, because that just, I mean, now the burden is solely on the small towns who can just about afford things now. So what are they gonna do? Wait till somebody dies?
And the governor signed it.
Yeah.
This is now signed law, yeah.
Nice sign.
It's a city ordinance. It's not.
And coming from working in cities, I know that they're freaking out about this too.
Yeah.
It is much more significant than most like Saco, South Portland, those larger municipalities have right now. It is much.
Because their height,
Even
their height
there.
changes as well, right?
Correct. So in Saco, we did have a 50-foot height requirement in our downtown district because our current buildings were about that high. 64.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, when I was there, I would not have voted for
Chopper's with
this.
water buckets.
It's wrong. It's just wrong.
Are you aware of a state that's really running at a pretty rapid pace and got their act together on ADUs?
On ADUs, I'm aware of towns in Maine that, until this passage, did have some pretty good standards around ADUs. The owner occupancy thing is throwing me for a loop, but you can still, have performance standards around how many bedrooms maximum, how many square footage maximums, things like that, or accessory dwelling units. And that's what we'll want to consider heavily is what do we as Monmouth define as an ADU? What size is that? Yep. Because those are the levers you can still pull.
From a legal standpoint, ownership, is there only one owner? You can only have one owner of each?
Well, you could condominiumize, certainly.
Really?
And I'm wondering if people will do that. And then sell them.
Boy,
That would be-
That could get sticky.
And then you then you have to have
You
have to have an association, if you have common walls and public area, common areas, you've got maintenance. And it's, I think in a lot of the coastal communities, you see this happening. They condominiumize kind of a place where they have a couple structures or units. Because they're maximizing their profit on it
So we'll tackle LD 2003, the lower stuff. We can have conversations throughout the process. My general approach to zoning amendments, absent legislation, is to come with a draft, have conversations, do some walking around and see, okay, what does this frontage look like? What does this setback look like? Try to illustrate it in the environment. And so we'll go through the same process that we would any other time and have conversations with other town staff, like the fire department and everyone, to make sure that they understand the ramifications and that they're on board.
But this isn't really going to be applicable to rural areas. Is that correct?
So the first half of my memo is about LD 2003. That is already applicable, the up to 4 units.
Okay.
Requiring ADUs on any residential lot, et cetera. The second half, the things that you guys seem to start getting nervous about, is not yet applicable and doesn't need to apply until 2027 or until such time that I hear otherwise, as in like a legal challenge has occurred. I will keep you involved.
Good question, like you could do another unit on a non-conforming lot, could you?
So this was one of my concerns from LD 2003. The opinion of the state and their legal team is that if it is a non-conforming lot, you are allowed to do an accessory dwelling unit because those don't have to meet dimensional requirements. They have to be placed to be conforming to all setbacks and the like. They don't have to meet dimensional requirements. So you could theoretically do an accessory dwelling unit on an existing non-conforming lot. Yeah.
Yeah, the rules have changed.
Yeah.
Like building small houses.
Right. Yeah, fortunately, we're not building small ones these days. They're all getting bigger and bigger.
But maybe they're gonna condominiumize soon.
By the bedroom.
Yeah.
Maybe like a dorm. Yeah.
So, that's the update I have. The other just, I mean, it almost pales in comparison, but I'll just bring it up. The other law that was signed back in June was also the elimination of minimum parking requirements. So you're no longer allowed to require certain number of parking spaces for any kind, any residential use. So it's another piece as well. Almost pales in comparison to the other stuff, but that alone is a fairly significant change.
Yeah. It's nonsensical.
So what about shoreland zoning?
There wasn't, as in like parking.
Well, I mean, I'm thinking more of the additional dwelling units and.
Yeah.
Yep, so,
Of course, for us, it's not growth area generally. There might be some overlap around Cottawag a little bit, but.
shorelands, I anticipate that this is where we might get some rulemaking about the changes because, with LD 2003, you were allowed to have an accessory dwelling unit even in the shoreland as long as it can meet all setback requirements, so water setback requirements, which on many of our small lots is not possible, but could theoretically be. I anticipate that with this new change around, requiring a certain number of dwelling units and everything else, we'll get some rulemaking about how that applies to shoreland.
Couldn't.
Like a few more units down your road.
I think you don't think you can fit many more, can you?
We can barely get a big truck down there now. Maybe I can modify my shed
Yeah, that's right.
and rent it out.
Yes,
Yeah,
there you go.
Airbnb.
The other thing is, and it was not addressed this session, but I know that the folks MDI by Harbor area down east are extremely concerned about this impact and how it will impact Airbnbs because as I think you noted, people in Bar Harbor will build an accessory dwelling unit and Airbnb out that accessory dwelling unit, which obviously significantly changes the fabric of a neighborhood. That did not get addressed within this legislative session, but I did hear that was something that they're planning to address next year, in terms of potentially limiting or at least having conversations about Airbnbs and short-term rentals. So.
Yeah, but that's like any other thing. Somebody built an accessory dwelling unit and, their brother or somebody lived in it for the year and now they're gone and they rent it out.
Yeah. Yeah.
We can come to a problem.
Yeah. Well, no, I see, my barn is part of a so I think subdivisions could still restrict.
Yeah.
Because I would think.
I'm sure that'll be clarified. So I don't know if you're in like an HOA or if you have covenants or restrictions, any private restrictions obviously still apply.
Yeah.
So, if you live in a subdivision that doesn't allow the construction of ADUs,
You
can't do it. So private restrictions still apply. It is unclear if you would have to go through like a subdivision amendment to add an accessory dwelling unit. That I don't know. So I'm sure that'll be clarified.
Because many of the subdivisions, are restricted to single family.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
We've seen, I think. Okay, stay tuned.
Okay.
I guess.
Yeah, so maybe as the fall starts, we can start kind of looking at the comprehensive land use ordinance. There's a few things that I know Andy thinks we should look at. The fence issue was one of his. And
What issue?
the fences. He thinks there was something about the height that he didn't think made a lot of sense.
Yeah, we
So-
went there already once.
Yeah.
Andy's not gonna be around.
Right. So we'll see what he says and we can discuss it.
There's sort of like organization changes that I wanna make,
Yeah.
you know, non-substantive, but just sort of changing. the
To move
rules.
stuff around.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there is, for instance, the, private, code people. We don't have anything in our ordinance that talks
Third-party
about that.
inspectors. I mean,
Private inspectors.
Yeah.
We kind of need to address that. There's a few other things that sometimes I think, you know, you go through this and you sometimes take out things that you really didn't mean to take out. I don't know that that happened in our ordinance, but I had made notes. I know Dave Shaw has a few that he collected and
I keep notes anytime I run across something that
Something
doesn't
that
make
looks
sense or is conflicting with another piece.
yeah.
You take a lot of notes then, huh?
That's why she couldn't use the binder, she actually used a computer. A lot more memory.
All right.
How did you make out with her, you know, with the budget, with keeping her on it? You started to talk.
Well, yeah, I think, you know, Justin is concerned about the number of hours and, you know, the contract kind of would, a monthly contract could get blown out of the water if we had a real influx of some more development, you know, because what do you got, is it 8 hours they want you to have a month or
It's
something?
8 hours, and when I first started, especially, and we were doing some process
Yeah.
improvements, I went over that every month.
Yeah.
We were able to kind of shake it so that like in June, I only did maybe 2 hours, and so that offset it for the course of the year, but yeah.
But I mean, you're doing some code enforcement work in a sense, right? I mean,
Yeah,
and how many hours is that a week? No, it's,
Well, as an add-in, it's not for very many. I saw an ad in the paper, or somewhere for Monmouth.
They're looking for a CEO.
It's,
but,
And they don't-
right, I mean,
Was it this?
it was in the messenger. Yeah, what does it say?
but the time's gotta be made up somewhere. I mean, Andy doesn't, you know, code enforcement doesn't have enough time to do all that stuff.
No.
Yeah.
He should have more, and she should too, if she wants it, cause I mean, it's not enough hours in a week to take care of all
Right.
this stuff.
oh, just to clarify, my 8 hours is 8 hours a month.
Right, right,
Yeah.
right.
This says we anticipate a need of 15 to 20 hours per week.
Yeah. That's good.
So that's
Code
more,
enforcement and part-time plumbing inspection.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Code enforcement plumbing?
Yeah, they want the plumbing in it too.
so
Jeez.
that didn't increase the
No,
No,
CEO any.
no.
Yeah, I just see a selectmen's meeting, they only had one applicant and it's too much money.
Really. So I bet Ben, you know, go to other towns for permits and before other planning boards and stuff, and there's some towns that didn't have a town manager or a code enforcement officer. You couldn't do it. I mean, what are you gonna do? You know, it's like,
Yeah, and I mean, I hear all the time, you know, people are trying to get a hold of Andy and, you know, the town office gives him the phone number and he doesn't necessarily answer it.
I was in the town office the other day and the sign on thing says Dandy isn't gonna be here the week of the 14th or the 21st.
Right. 2 weeks he's gone.
Maybe we
So
can
I-
adjourn.
I needed
Yeah.
something in that, so I just
Yes.
called.
I've been able to get a hold of him pretty well. He gives you, you know, he says email him
Yeah.
or text
Yeah.
him.
I mean, I haven't had a problem myself, but.
Yeah, he's been pretty good that way. So if you just gotta do what he asks.
Motion to adjourn.
All right. Motion to adjourn.
Okay.
Yep.
We are adjourned.
Second.